Hello, welcome to Speech Talk Live. This is episode number 46. My name is Jay Oza. I'm the host of the show, and my co-host is Julie Wu Finkelstein. I want to thank you for watching the show, or if you're joining live, thank you. Julie and I are both mentors for the Coursera course, Introduction to Public Speaking. We've been doing that now for, I think, more than a year, probably closer to 2 years now. And we use this show as a way to educate, well, several things. We like to learn. So we're a student in heart. So we like to learn, we like to teach, we like to coach, and we also like to get better at public speaking or speaking in general. So that's why we do this show. It's our way of learning, but also to help others, since it's a global community and it's not possible to help individually, since we're both volunteers. So today's show, we have 3 segments. That's pretty much our normal show. In segment 1, it'll be a discussion topic around ask. I think one of the things that I think a lot of speakers don't think about this, and something I wanted to discuss with Julie, is that you need to know what your ask is before you even give a speech. Because if you just give a speech without knowing what your ask is, then the question is, you're leaving the audience kind of confused, like what should they do? So I think the ask is something that's kind of important you have to think about, and we'll have a discussion on that. The second segment is our continuation series. Julie has been kindly recording these videos, and she's trying something different now. She split these videos into 2 now. One is a talk video about the pose that she then demos after she does a video on the talk. So rather than doing it in one video, I think it works out better by having it separated into 2 videos. So Julie will facilitate that segment. And this time she has done a video on a pigeon pose. So she will discuss the talk part and also the demo part. And then if I will give her feedback based on what kind of feedback she's looking for. That's typically our format. And it's also a good way for you to understand how to do these type of show and tell videos. And then the third segment is something that I came up when I was listening to this podcast. I think something that I mentioned it in the past. It's a Michael Port's podcast that he does with Seth Godin. And they were having this discussion around high stakes. And I wanted to discuss that. Like, we're all in a high stakes situation when we're speaking, but how do you be yourself and still be able to handle that high stakes situation? So we'll have a discussion topic on that. And before I turn it over to Julie, I'm just going to use my 90 seconds to talk about something that I observed last night. In the United States last night, they had the primary election. And on the Republican side, Donald Trump did really well. He won 5 of the states where they had the primaries. But the thing that was interesting was when he came to give a speech, I noticed something kind of interesting. He had all kinds of audio problems. And that occurred to me that here's the guy who's running for president, and he did not take care of this detail. I mean, his whole brand is around taking care of details. That's his brand. That's what he is. That's how he's become rich, But how could you miss something so simple as not taking care of the audio? I mean, this is at his site. This is not at some remote site or something that he has no control over. Even if he had that, he knew that he was going to do well. He knew he was going to give a speech. He knew he was going to ask questions. Why not make sure that the audio is the last thing that you have to worry about, that not working well? And it also goes to show that when you're giving a speech, make sure your audio is working before you actually give a speech. Because if the audio is not working, it not only reflects poorly on the people who are in charge of the audio, they'll never see them, but it reflects poorly on you, that why didn't you take care of it? So I just learned an important lesson from watching Donald Trump, that no matter how big you are, if you don't take care of these details, it comes back on you. So whenever you have an opportunity to give a speech, take care of the audio. Julie, I'll pass it over to you. Why don't you introduce yourself and see if you have any 90-second insight for us to think about.
Thanks, Jay. So God is in the details. Thank you. So my name is Julie Wu Finkelstein, and I like to put the wood in there because otherwise someone thinks I'm 7 feet tall German woman. And I'm a 5'3" Chinese woman. So I participate with Jay in many public speaking technique projects. And one of them that I love is this one, and the other one we mentor the Coursera course, and finally we're supporting each other doing books. Today, I want to talk about using videos to play with finding your identity. I have 2 people I coach, and they coach me on different things, and I've asked them to do a 5-minute video on something about themselves or their core message, because one of them is a musician and he wants to be interviewed on TV and radio talk shows, and yet his handler doesn't really work with him on how to present himself. June is coming up and he's supposed to go on TV shows in June, so I'm making him to do videos. The other person is I will call a pathfinder supporter for those people who are interested in using emerging technologies with holistic health, bridging ancient and leading edge technologies for health. So look at things like Ayurvedic, holistic DNA, patterning, lifestyle choices, etc. And she wants me to help her with a mission statement, so I'm asking her to do a 5-minute video on it, and she wants a tagline, so I'm going to work with her after she does the video. So taking the advice that Jay gave me, which is don't help people until they help themselves, they're going to have to step up with their games. And I'm inviting you all to talk about yourself on the video. There's a great software called Clipchamp, 5 minutes or its limit, and you can talk anything for 5 minutes, and then you can share with someone. Find a practice buddy. Jay has given me innumerable good advice. So I just want to share that 5-minute talk about yourself to help your identity and your mission. Do it now or do it today. And if you want someone to email to, you can email it to me. Best of luck and thank you.
Excellent suggestion, Julie. I will include your email. So if anybody is interested taking Julie's offer, I will include her email and you can send it to her. What is the name of the software? Clipchat?
Clipchamp, like champion. CLIPChamp.
Okay, and it's freely available, or you have to pay for it?
It's freely available, and you can share that right away on YouTube, Facebook, and a few other social medias right away.
Maybe it might be useful if you can record a video on how you're using this Clipchamp. I know it probably is intuitive, but just so there are a lot of people out there, when you mention new technology, they get scared. So one of the action items I have for you is record a short video on what exactly do you do, give the people all the details on how to use it, and then show a finished product of a video. You can even say, this video, I'm using Clipchamp, and here's what I did. So that way people can then, because one of the things is you want to, sometimes the technology can also act as an impediment. So if you can show them how easy it is, then people will start doing it. The other thing I'll mention to you, I know you said you're coaching somebody who's going to be doing interviews. After you've coached that person, if that, you can also offer to that person to, since I don't know who that person is, that if they want to do a mock interview on the show, and they can then, we can do a mock interview, it'll give that person a practice, and then the person can watch it on YouTube how well he or she did. So offer that to the person if that person is interested in doing that, because I think it would be a good practice. I mean, obviously you're coaching them, but at some point they need some sort of like a role play where they can actually see themselves, how they look and how they appear, and answering questions. So that's good stuff, Julie. Thanks a lot, and we'll take a brief pause and move to our first segment. Okay, welcome back to Speech Talk Live, episode number 46. My name is Jay Oza. I'm the host, and my co-host is Julie Wu Finkelstein. And as we have said before, we're both mentors for the Coursera course, Introduction to Public Speaking. In this first segment, which is going to be a discussion on a topic that I recorded a video. And the video that I recorded had to do with that when you're giving a speech, you got to know your ask. Like, what exactly are you asking? And it's not just simple enough that you just give a speech and then you're done. That doesn't do anything. A lot of times people, because let's face it, people are scared when they're giving a speech. They're just happy to be done with and sit down or disappear. But the thing that you do need to think about, and this is something you got to think about before you give the speech, the first thing you have to do is, what exactly are you asking the audience to do? It could be something simple as, hey, if you want more details, you can get, like Julie does that really well. And we can talk about that in her video. Maybe she can improve the ask a little bit. But come up with the ask and ask somebody to just review your ask. Are you asking something that is doable and how they can do it? Whether it could be, like in my case, I used the video that, in my video, I said I coach people win with their speeches. And I said, perhaps I can help you too do the same or something like that. And that was just an intro speech, but I just included even an ask in there. Because if you're not asking, then the audience, whoever you're talking to, is just listening, but there is nothing for that person to do. And you need that person to interact with you, engage with you. And the ask allows you to do that. So anytime you are working on your intro speech or an impromptu speech or informative or persuasive, I think it's important to really start and put down big word, ask. What am I asking the audience to do? What do I want the audience to do? What is my ask? And I think that way you at least have a focus that after the speech, it's not one and done. It's a continuation. It could lead to a relationship. It could lead to a business. It could lead to thought leadership. But there has to be an ask there, something you're asking your audience members to do. So, Julie, since you're doing these videos on these poses, the hack, the integral hack, what do you think of that? What are you asking your audience? You don't need to answer this because we're going to cover that in the next video. But it is something that do you give any thought to that before you record your videos?
Thanks, Jay. I just took a minute to take a deep breath. I really like the word that you put, clear, to ask. Yes, I have been asking, and I think with your help, I've been much more proactive about asking. But I really like the word clear because I think sometimes I ask, but I don't make sure that I'm clearly asking. And I liked your speech a lot, and I thought that your use of the example of the panhandler was very profound and poignant. In the sense that it was poignant was because, to many of us have a deep fear of being exactly where they're at, right? It's an existential fear. So to connect to that deep emotional level is poignant. And for your generosity to admit to the audience, you don't usually do it, but you felt compelled to do it this time, that made it personal. It helped me make a connection with you. The reason why I thought it was also profound was at the end, and I would have liked you to elaborate that a little bit more personally for me. I'm not giving you guidelines, I'm just giving you my personal feedback. Is that you said something, you said the panhandler was very good at asking for something small, and maybe if he could have asked for something bigger, he'd become a great salesman. And what that resonated for me personally is some of us are afraid to ask for something big. And so maybe at the end, I infer from what I think you were implying is don't be afraid to ask for something big. Because at one point you even talked about $5 million. And I would like that part of your ask of the audience to be more clear. Is that don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to ask for what you really want, and don't be afraid to ask for something big. Like that's like 1, 2, 3. I've been working with someone that I want her to start saying 1, 2, 3, maybe not out loud, but in her mind, because what your point of 60, 30, 10, but 1, 2, 3, I would have liked to hear that actually a bit more clearly. So that's my I really want to applaud you for making this like the foreground of the talk, because it helps me to focus on what is important that I might not be looking at. So thank you very much.
Yeah, Julie, thanks a lot for that feedback. Yeah, that example of $5 million was I took it from this book, Donald Trump's book, the Art of the Deal, where Jimmy Carter had come to him after he had lost the election to contribute $5 million to the Jimmy Carter Library. And I think the first thing to do is, and I mean, this is a deep topic. I didn't want to make it too long because the main thing is I just wanted to get it out there. But I think now what you're saying is that there is much more here, that this could be expanded into a much longer speech, because there's a lot of things in here that what I can do is I can write a blog, and then we can see if I can turn that into an informative or persuasive speech. But the thing to do is first, like we do a lot of role playing as far as here's our message, here's this, here's that. All that thing is fine, but at some point you have to kind of move the ball, if I may use that metaphor. And to move the ball, there has to be an ask. Otherwise, you don't move the ball. Like, I don't know if you ever seen, when I grew up in India, there were all these cows, and they're pretty stubborn. They don't move. You got to goad them, otherwise they just sit there. They're like lazy. They don't want to move. And human beings are no different. You got to like poke them, like move, move, move. And ask is like that poke. You got to poke them, like, hey, like little kids figure that out very quickly. But then when they get older, they forget to ask, because now they think like, oh, I can do it myself. Why do I need to ask? So I think we just need to keep that in mind when we are giving a speech. What is it that we're asking? Because remember, speech, when I'm talking about a speech, I'm not just talking about being on the stage. I think for that, you should have it. Let's assume that most people will have that. But there are a lot of asks that we don't ever take advantage of in an informal setting, whether it's networking, now again, there is an art of asking. You just don't go and say, hey, can you give me $1 million, like that. There has to be something that you can help that person with that allows you to ask. So I think there's a lot involved here. That's why I didn't want to go too deep into it. I just wanted to kind of throw it out there, saying that at least think about it when you're working on your speech, whether it's intro, impromptu, informative, or persuasive. So thanks for that feedback. And any closing thoughts on this topic before we move on to segment 2?
I'm sorry, I didn't realize I was unmuted. Yeah, I think that's a great idea, and anytime I can support you, let me know. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot, Julie. And at this point, we'll end this. We'll take a brief pause and move on to our next segment. Okay, welcome back to Speech Talk Live, episode 46. And this is segment number 2. My name is Jay Oza. I'm the host, and my co-host is Julie Vu Finkelstein. And in this second segment of this Speech Talk Live, we're going to discuss the video that Julie has been working on. It's a series of videos that Julie has been working on. And one of the things that Julie's trying to do is educate people on these simple poses or stretches, so that you can kind of, gain strength, gain stability and even flexibility. So overall, the effect is that it tends to energize. You can energize yourself doing these poses that she's been working on. There are 12 of them, and in this particular video, she is talking about a pigeon pose. And what she's done here is this is something that came out of her last video where she had done a talk video and then a demo video, but that happened because of the software that she was using. But then I said, it might be better to do it that way. So here you'll see in this video, if you watch them, you'll see that Julie is very confident. She's got her act together. She doesn't have to worry about whether she's going to be able to finish it or not. She knows that this is going to be a talk video and this is going to be a demo video. So she's not trying to mix up the two. And I think it kind of shows in the video the way she has approached it in doing the video. And I think that's a very good lesson that if you're watching this can learn. Focus your video on one thing. You can always connect, stitch the technology should not be the hindrance. You can always stitch things together, but focus on the main message that you want to convey. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Julie to discuss the two videos, and then if she has any kind of feedback that she wants from me, I'll be happy to give it to her. So Julie, why don't you take over and explain the video that you did?
Thank you, Jay. Yes, so to respond to your feedback, I agree with you that it was a happy serendipity that I'm doing two videos now because it really does give me more time to focus and to be clear. In talking about the pigeon itself is I'll talk about what I talked about and I'll talk about the movement. And I'm happy to take all feedbacks. I did find a camera my son has, so I'm going to try to use a different camera for the next one. So from a anatomy and function, a physiology point of view, the pigeon is about opening up our hips. So if you think of our body as a sideways H, so you have the shoulder and the hips, and then there's the spine that connects it, okay? The hips is the baseline, it's the bottom. And because human beings move, the hips are very important in providing strength and stability when we stand, and also dynamic movement. So the hips is the source of power to use the gravity forces, and to look at the reverse H is a really good thing to do because one of the things that I always talk about is the forces of gravity coming down. But if you can in alignment, it actually supports you up. The second thing is the psoas muscle. The psoas muscle connects all the way to the middle of the spine through the pelvis into the inner thigh. So it is the hip is the hinge that moves everything and has the most mass in our body. Okay, so most of us, when we're young, our pelvis is too weak. So then we compensate using our pelvis and we lose alignment. And this carry us all the way into old age. And then in old age, we lose alignment continuously through the years. And also we lose flexibility because our fear of movement limits our range. Our limiting of the range deprive us of the range of motion. So opening the hips really is very important to be powerful, to live your life with action. So one of the things I do is if I'm doing a vision work or if I'm going into a big project, I work on my hips. Because amazingly, the fear to act is actually literally embedded in the hips, okay? So I try to explain that and also how powerful that move is. And then I demonstrated it, which I don't need to go through it. I think the demonstration was very good. And just as a final point, I'd like to say thank you. Without, this whole idea of serendipity, discovering things that we don't know about, I'm writing a book on these poses, but as you know, I didn't know how to move forward. And I believe by doing these features and having your feedback, I'm actually beginning to find organization and clarity. So I just want to acknowledge that sometimes um, we don't know what benefits comes from our practice, right? So thank you, and I'm eager to hear your feedback.
Yeah, Julie, thanks a lot. Yeah, I think what you just said is quite interesting. That whenever you're stuck, the best thing to do is just keep doing it, because that in itself, by doing it, you will. Because when you're doing it, you somehow there's an energy that gets created, because that makes the other people notice it, and they provide some feedback. And you have to make sure that the people that are providing feedback really are the right type of people. But just by doing it alone, you will probably figure it out. And that usually, rather than looking for somebody to inspire you, it doesn't work like that. And I think my whole point was to just say, look, if you're stuck, that's okay. Everybody gets stuck, but don't get stuck in keep doing things, because then you will organize it, and everything you're doing, either you can use it or you don't have to use it, but at least you've done it. That in itself, it becomes a small win. And I think that's what you're noticing, that by doing it, it's helping you to gather your ideas better, saying, okay, yes, I see, this is now working, this is now working, oh, I get it now. But if you just leave it off, then you can't come back to it. So I think I agree with what you just said. I like the way you did this. The talk, you're confident, you go right up front, and I'm noticing it because I don't know whether not worrying about the demo allowed you to just say, okay, I'm just going to focus on the talk, but it showed that you were really relaxed. And I like the way you gave that the boxing example, which is the whole point of it. The talk was to get people really interested in the pose, and showing how much power, if you use your entire body, the way you're just using that punch motion, that it's not just punch, it's the entire body that you're putting into it. That's what gives you the power, whether it's boxing or any of the martial art moves, that it's the entire body. That's why you see sometimes these people that are not big, but they have such tremendous power, because they're using every ounce of their body into and they can actually break blocks and stuff because of that. They know how to do it. I like the way you ended it, the way you summarized it. Say strong. This pigeon pose will helps you with strength, stability, and flexibility. And then I like the way when you went into the demo, you started out with that, which is good, because I think the way you end the talk is where you want to begin the demo. And at that point, the one thing I would suggest, and these are minor things, urge them to see the talk. That, in case you haven't seen the talk, we concluded the talk part about that the pigeon pose allows you to become strong, gives you stability, and gives you flexibility. And I urge you to watch it, because I go into that in more detail, since you're not going to do that in the demo, but at least let them know that that's there. Reference that. And I don't know whether you did or not, but I just noted it down, so maybe I didn't hear it. And then okay, so because in the demo, basically what you're telling them is that this one, I'm going to actually show you the pose that we discussed in the talk, like that. There's got to be that transition is what I'm talking about. And another thing, I think when you demo it, I think you talked about the 3 stages, and in the demo, you got to make sure that the demo is very consistent with what you're saying. When you were going through it, again, it should be referencing the talk, like, okay, this is the stage 1 that we talked about. Boom. And I think the pigeon pose was done in 3 stages. That's what you said in the talk. But when you were demoing it, I don't know whether you specifically used it. It's like, okay, this is stage 1. This is now stage 2 I'm moving into, and now I'm moving into stage 3, like that. So I might have missed it, but I don't remember the word stage coming up in the demo, that you did use in the talk. So you want to make sure that the talk and the demo are consistent. And oh, the last thing is, I just thought that the demo was really well done. The only thing I would point out is it again ended kind of abruptly. You want to relax a little bit before you actually end it. You just I think kind of ended it like Pigeon is for power, and then you just said, and I'm Julie Wu Finkelstein. Just take a deep breath. You don't need to end it abruptly. Just say, again, let me just reiterate the three things again. And it's okay, like you said, you can repeat these things multiple times. That Pigeon is provides you strength, provides you stability, provides you flexibility, and then there should be a call to action. Now that you've learned it, I hope you can do it. You can do it yourself. And then you can say, and if you have any questions, watch this again, or just give me or get in touch with me or something like that. So there is definitely a call to action. Those are like minor points, which I think you're pretty close to getting. But besides that, I think you got the framework. You just need to kind of tie these things well together so there's some cohesion there. And then the ending, just relax a little bit and just summarize what the whole purpose of this pose was, the three things that you had mentioned. And then also urge them to do it. And then if they have any questions, they can contact you. And I think that would do it. So overall, I think this was really well done. Any other questions?
No, that's great. And I'll just say this was my fifth hack on the demo. And because ClipChamp has a 5-minute dead stop, there's no room to give at all. I just gave up on trying to include that. That's what happened.
Right. And I know you were struggling with the camera in the demo, but then you finally got it right. Then you finally got it right at the end where it was showing you exactly what you were doing. I don't think there's much you can do about it unless you can get somebody to
hold
move the camera. So I know it's kind of tough to, like I said, one thing you can do is do stage 1 and then stop it, position the camera, do stage 2, then you can, in the video editor, that's a lot of work.
Yeah, I would do that, except I ran out of time, as you know.
Right. No, I think I noticed it that you had worked hard on this, because this was you said the 5th one? Because I saw 3 of them.
I didn't include the other 2.
Oh, okay.
I did the talk hack 4 times and did the demo hack 5 times. So.
Right, because I did see the improvement from the 1st to the 2nd to the 3rd. So I did see the improvement, and I think you should be proud of doing that, and actually also including it for me to see, because it shows to me that you are actually putting in the time, that you are actually saying, listen, I think I can do better than this. I think I can. But again, you don't want it to be perfect. You want it to be good enough. And I like it at some point you just said, okay, that's why these programs are good, because you have to finish it by Tuesday. You can't, otherwise you'll never finish it. Otherwise this could go on for another week and week and week, and then you'll just give up. So I like that imposed deadline there, that you have to get it done by Tuesday no matter what. The show has to go on. So at some point, the last one is always going to be good enough. And that's what we're looking for here. We're not looking for perfection. So again, congratulations, and I think you're getting the hang of it. You should really be feeling good about that. The way you've done this, that you can take it to the next level. And I like the amount of look. The only thing that you can say that you're doing, that you control, is the effort that you're putting into this, and you're asking for feedback. So you're doing everything right to get better, and that's the hallmark of a good student.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so I think at this point we'll close it out. So if you're watching this, this is what you should be doing. This is something where you record a video and find a learning buddy who's also interested like you are, and who's willing to give the feedback. And that's what we're trying to show here, Julie and I. When I do a video, she gives me the feedback. When she does a video, I give her a feedback. And then, she can take some of the points that I'm making and then incorporate it into her, and that's how you get better. Let me tell you, most people who give speeches never do this. I don't see anybody out there doing this. This is work, and that's why people don't do it. So thanks a lot, and we'll take a pause and move to our third segment. Okay, welcome back to Speech Talk Live, episode 46. My name is Jay Oza. I'm the host of the show, and my co-host is Julie Wu Finkelstein. And in this segment, we're going to talk about something that we all have to deal with, is high stakes speaking. Now, high stakes is what's in our brain, right? We are the ones who determine whether something is high stakes. And it is important to know ahead of time whether something is high stakes, not at the event, ahead of time. Because if it's not high stakes, then what that means is you're not going to either take it seriously, and that means you're not going to put in the effort. You're just going to wing it. That's not going to lead to good results. Once in a while, you may get lucky. And sometimes you do get lucky, because what happens is if you don't consider something as high stakes, you're going to be yourself. And sometimes that's what the other person sees in you. You come across more natural. But you don't want to do that. What you want to do is, that's by accident. You don't want it to lower the stakes by accident. You want to do it purposefully, lower the stakes. So the way I handle high stakes situations, one thing that I recommend to you is that, let's say you're going for a job interview. So let's take that as an example, since that's something we've all gone through and we're quite familiar with. You want the job. Let's say you're being interviewed at Google. Everybody wants to work at Google or Facebook or Apple or one of these places. And what you do is that you want the job. So you treat it as a high stakes. You're going to go and prepare real hard, like 2 weeks, whatever it takes. You're going to go through all the possible questions they'll ask, everything. And you're ready. Now you have an interview. Once you're ready, once you've done all the preparation, now you want to be yourself, because you've already done as much as you can. You're not going to be able to come up and think on top of your feet. That's something I don't agree with, okay? You now have done all the preparation. Now it's game time. At game time, you're going to do things pretty much by instinct. If you have prepared for an answer, you're going to be giving that great answer. And the better the preparation, the better you're going to come across. But you want to be yourself at this point. Now you're not going to appear stiff, and you got to say to yourself, listen, I've done all the preparation. Now, even if it doesn't work out, I know I can feel good that I've done everything I can, and I'm going to be myself. And that's what the interviewer are going to see. In fact, I was just reading this book by Amy Cuddy, Presence. And in that book, she talks about one of her, a Harvard student had done some research on what the venture capitalists, when they're listening to pitches, which ones do they usually fund? And she found, according to this student's research, I forgot her name, Lakshmi Balachandra, I think was the student. She's actually now a professor at one of the colleges, I think Babson or someplace. So when she was like a PhD student or a postdoc student or fellow, whatever it was, she did the research. And what she found was that there are 3 things that she found that she kept on seeing. There was a pattern there. And what she found was that the number one thing that she saw in the pitches that got funded was confidence. You had to be confident, not fake confidence, genuine confidence. Second one was the comfort level. You had to look like you were comfortable. And the third one, you had to be passionate. And she said the content and your credential didn't really have that much to do with it. If you had these 3, confidence, comfort level, and passion, then it likely got funded. But if you just came and said, I've started 5 companies and my content is so and so, the VCs didn't care about that. So people do see how you project yourself, how you present yourself. And that applies to, because let's face it, when you're trying to get funding, that is an interview. So it seems like what she probably saw, and I don't know, I haven't seen her paper. I think she's currently writing a book. I think what that showed to me was that a lot of these people have already had done the preparation before they went to the VC. And when they were in front of the VC, they were just being themselves. They weren't trying to be fake or anything like, oh, I'm going to make millions of dollars or come up with some sort of overplay the card. They were just trying to be themselves, even though they were a little bit nervous, but that was okay. But those three things really made the difference. So we're all going to be involved in high stakes speaking, and you want to be in the high stakes speaking, but that high stakes should only be when you're practicing. Once you've done all the practicing and when you're actually directly in the moment, you should really be yourself and saying, at this point, I'm just going to be myself. If it works out, great. Because in the post game, you can evaluate yourself and saying, okay, were you actually stiff? Why were you stiff? Was it the lack of preparation, or somehow you just stopped being yourself? And if you stopped being yourself, why was that? Like, why did that? You can be a little bit nervous, and that's all. It's the other thing I think I pointed out in the video is the start and the ending is very important. So it's very important to make sure that you have a start, because once you get that start, then you'll take over, and then you got to know how to end it. So like I was saying, the ask and all that could be part of your ending. So make sure you got the start right and the ending rehearsed. So that too, you can plan those two ahead and be even scripted. And I think one of the example I gave was what I saw yesterday with this Kelly Ripa. She had some kind of a spat, and she came back and she had some cute line, the nightmare is over or something like that. And I thought that was scripted and was well done. So anyway, Julie, what are your thoughts on this high stakes? How do you deal with high stakes, and what do you recommend other students do when they are in a high stakes situation, like an interview, a meeting, or even a speech?
Well, Jay, I'll talk about how I deal with high stakes speeches, and then I also like to give some comment on your speech. So for me, a high stakes speech, I think even just coming on to this show is high stakes for me, because I care so much about how I appear. I am not very much in the job interview these days. However, I do coach with people who are doing job interviews, and this man who's going to go on TV, and a woman who's going to be speaking with a bunch of people in a very global nonprofit environment. She has a high school degree, and her colleagues will be all double PhDs, mostly double PhDs. So these are all high stakes speeches, and I support them. So maybe it's secondhand experience. I think the first thing, as I mentioned in our 90-second speech, is practice. I'm making them practice. The second thing is a clarity of identity, that they really need to be confident not just about what they're doing, but who they are, because that is the core. What they do can change in life, but who they are is something I believe that they just create. So there's a classic book by Berger and Lockman. It's called Social Construction of Reality. And I believe that even the identity, there's a certain degree of creation. And I think I agree with you that you want people to be authentic. So I would say practice, be confident, be clear about who you are, and then everything else will come across. The second thing, based on today's talk, that I'm going to be very encouraging them to do is be clear of the outcome. Be clear of the outcome, which is what you talk about in your speech as well. And I think the third one may sound a little bit contradictory or paradoxical, but in job interviews, certainly true. But even in public situations, is be receptive and create a connection, which is what you did when you used the panhandlers example. So those are my key things, is be clear about who you are, be confident about who you are and what you do, and then listen or somehow be receptive and create a connection, and then be clear about the outcome. That's about 5 things. In terms of your speech, I want to again thank you for it, because every time you talk about something, it's really important. And I agree. Some of the hints I got from you was do practice, don't minimize, work out scenarios. That's 3. Focus on the beginning, memorize it. Focus on the end, memorize it. And I thought those were really good points, and I like your game metaphor. The only thing I will ask for a little bit more is in your definition of what a high-stakes speech is. It seems like that's like if I look at your title, handling is one major theme, high-stakes speaking is another. So I would like a little bit more importance, focus on what is a high-stakes speech. I think I got from you that maybe it's an opportunity, maybe it's an emotional importance, maybe it's an outcome, and to investigate that in the scenario. I really like what you said during the practice period, using the game metaphor, you want to play out all the scenarios. The one thing I will add is when you talk about during the game, you said be yourself, but then today's speech you added confidence, comfort level, and passionate. And I didn't hear that in your initial speech, and I would just add that to it. And I would say be opportunistically positive. Those 3 key terms for me comes to be opportunistically positive. It's just a look at things. Now that you've seen all the scenarios, put your energy on the desired outcome. And then that's what you ask for at the end. I'm not quite sure how to word that, but I hope you got the idea. So with that, I turn over back to you.
Yeah, thanks, Julie, for the feedback. Yeah, those 3 things about confidence, I just kind of came up with it on the fly. Because I don't want it to be regurgitate exactly what I said in the video. So the video is just used as a way to have a discussion, and then I'm trying to see what more I can add to it that's not in the video. Otherwise, somebody said, "Hey, he just basically repeated everything that was in the video." So sometimes that's what happens. That when you're having a discussion, you'll come up with some more ideas, and then the video kind of stands on its own. I have a question for you. You said. Let's see, be receptive and create a connection. What, how is that you're talking about, like by telling a story, a personal story, or how do you do that?
For me, for the job interview situation, it's very clear. I will ask a question, but perhaps you can do that with a mass audience too. A lot of the times I see excellent speakers say, how many of you believe in this? How many of you believe in that? And what it does is it creates a stream or a spectrum of positions on the same major topic that they're talking about. So it differentiates and unifies and gives the speaker information simultaneously. And it interacts with the audience. So it gives in a very few moments, it does a lot to create the dynamism and a feedback loop into the speaker's minds, so that the speaker knows where the audience is at and is able to create a connection.
Right. No, that's good. The one thing I would add to that I didn't really talk about, but now that you just, and again, I don't want to diverge off because we still have 5 more minutes, is when I said about something that you wanted me to elaborate further, like the confidence, comfort level, and passion. I think there is a 4th in there that I think also is very important. You have to kind of show that you're under control. And I sometimes think, and I don't know if that's included in confidence or not, but control is very important in anything you do. You have to show that I don't want to use the word command and control. It sounds too, militaristic, but I think it's very important. Like when I talk to somebody, you want to be vulnerable, but at the same time, I do want to see somebody who has control of and in command of the situation and in control of what that person. I think it goes back what you're saying, like identity. As long as you know who you are, you're under control. You don't want to be. You kind of want to stay between. Again, using this football metaphor, between the 40-yard lines. You don't want to kind of veer off to the one end zone to the other end zone, and that requires, like you were saying, practice, because you need to know that when you're given an opportunity. I think it's something you mentioned to me, that when I'm talking, I tend to veer off on topics, tangent topics too much. That's actually a good feedback for me, because what that tells me is that I'm going away from the 40-yard zone. I'm drifting too much to the left or too much to the right, and that's not a good thing, actually. And I think any kind of speech you're giving, whether it's this type of show, kind of helps us practice that you want to stay. You got to identify your zones. What is the 40-yard to the left and 40-yard to the right, and don't go past that, at least for this speech, because then the audience start thinking that this guy is like all over the map here. Where exactly is he trying to stay? They might tolerate if you're drifting a little bit to the left and a little bit to the right, but they don't want you to be completely outside those 40-yard boundaries. So I think that's something I didn't include, but something that when you're in a high-stakes situation, you don't want to start throwing Hail Marys at that in a high-stakes situation. Like, hey, by the way, let me bring up something that I wanted to talk about. That may not be the right place to do it. You just want to show that. What are your thoughts on that, about this whole idea of being under command and control of what you're saying?
Yeah, I really have to think about that. So I want to give you 4 synonyms that kind of focus on it. Maybe we can talk offline about it, or maybe have a dialogue on that. I just want to underscore that I appreciate that. I didn't mean to imply that because it didn't hear that I was judging in any way. So I think that what you're doing, what I get is, one of the things when you make a video and then you talk about it, is the essence of iteration, and it helps us improve our speeches. So, and many times, I think we should go back and do the same topic again because of the nature of that. The 4 words that came up with your idea of control, command, I have command, control, competency, and credibility. So I think that's what you were trying to get to. And the other idea is staying at the core of things. And I'm beginning to practice that too. I want to apologize to you, because sometimes when you ask me what I think, I give you my idea, which takes you off on a tangent. So this show, the first time, I'm trying to stay in the core of the topic. So I basically say, thank you, it's a great topic, and maybe we can talk about this another time. So I'm trying to support both of us on that too.
Yeah, and I think it's a good way to, because the thing is that when you're in a high stakes, because we're talking about high stakes, right? When you're in a high stakes, means that the time there's a time constraint. Like in a football game, you only have limited amount of time. You just don't have time to take the entire team and saying, guys, we're going to continue the second half after another week after we do some more practice. It doesn't work like that. You got to do it right then and there. So whatever you have done, you're not going to be completely throw away the playbook and saying, guys, the playbook is gone. We're going to forget everything we did for the last week to get ready for this game. Now you're on your own. Just figure it out and just do it. That's kind of what I'm saying. Maybe using that the sports analogy is that you got to have a playbook and stick to it. Stick to the game plan, because once you start diverting too much off the game plan, then you're going to be winging it at that point, and that's just not where you want to be. That's what I was saying, that like sometimes people say, like when they go for a debate, like these presidential candidates or even a sport, that we stayed with our game plan. We stayed with our game plan, and that's what allowed us to win, because the coach told us to stay with the game plan. And I think the same idea applies to a speech, any high stakes situation, whether it's a job interview or if a meeting you go into. It's to able to execute something in a limited amount of time without going too outside the game plan. And the game plan should include where you are maintaining that control. And I think that's something we could talk about that more on how to do that. But I think we kind of do it in this show because, like I said, we record the video. That kind of gives us the base. And then we kind of move a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right, but we just don't completely throw away the main idea of the video that we recorded and talk about it and go completely off the tangent. And I think we kind of practice that in this show. So, and any closing thoughts, Julie, before we close out this program?
Great idea. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, so at this point, so any comment on the show? Anything that stood out or anything that can turn into that we need to expand in the future, any aspect of it? I think we covered Ask, and I think you're going to continue to record more videos. And I think you've given me some ideas on the second topic, which I think the third topic is going to keep, the third segment, it's going to keep coming up, is high stakes, because that's what people want. They want, how do you deal with it? This is like books and books are written on it, and we're trying to cover that in this one segment. So we're going to come back to this. And again, something that Julie said, which I didn't get to jot down, command, control, competency, and I think the other one was core. So I'll have to view it and think more about it, and maybe we can do a segment on that discussion topic, especially on this command and control part, because I think that's important. So Julie, any closing thoughts on the program? Okay, great. So at this point, let me thank you all for watching this show. And, I'm currently writing a book that I've tentatively titled You Are How You Speak. And I really believe that, you are how you speak. And Julie and I both take this very seriously. We practice, pretty much all the time, all these speeches. And it's something that, as you can see, we control that, right? We actually control how we come across. And this is one of the skills where it's an iterative process where you have to do it, then you have to evaluate, and you need to get some good feedback. Otherwise, it's like one of those things. Speaking is one of those things when if you don't speak well, you don't know what opportunities you're missing because you'll never know it. So you want to be doing it yourself and see yourself how you are coming across. And I think it's a skill that you got to constantly work on. It's not like a one and done thing. But the good news is that, look, we got the technology, we have the instruction, and hey, you have this show. So I hope this inspires you in some ways to do it. And at the end, it's, there are three words. There's aspiration, there is inspiration, but the most important is perspiration. You've got to put in the time. And I hope you do it. And we'll see you in the next show, Speech Talk Live episode 47. So again, thank you. And that's the wrap.